Hi, this is Vivian Vande Velde. I am probably not the first person that would come to mind when you're thinking about poetry. And in all honesty, I admit I should probably be just about the last person because I don't write poems. I do occasionally write thoughts expressed in short lines, as I did, for example, in Tales from the Brothers Grimm and the Sisters Weird, which is a collection of short stories, but also has these, let's just call them things, in between. This one is called Evidence. If the coach turned back into a pumpkin, and a coachman into a rat, and a footman into mice, one can only wonder why the glass slippers alone remained untouched by magic's ebbing tide. Obviously, a setup. But by whom? The fairy godmother's ability didn't extend beyond midnight. And where would a cinder girl have ever gotten shoes like that? Could they possibly have been a secret gift from the stepmother, eager to get her out of the house, tired of her unrelenting goodness and beauty and cheerfulness, not to mention all that singing? In some cases, though, I do actually have to write a poem, and that was the case in Heir Apparent, which has a main character named Janine who is on a quest. And as part of this quest, she meets the statue of St. Bruce the warrior poet. He will give her something that she needs to complete the test, but only if she makes up and recites to him a poem that he likes. The first time that she meets him, she decides that she will recite an ode, which she is making up at that moment. She says, an ode to St. Bruce. He had to like a poem praising him, didn't he? A warrior poet named Bruce. My mind ran through a series of words rhyming with Bruce, none of which seemed particularly apt. Wrote odes to his horse and his goose. Okay, that took care of the poet part. What about the warrior? He won honor and prizes. Prizes? What was I thinking of? Prizes. Against foes of various sizes. Against was poetical, even if the line itself was forced. And now, what about the saint part? Knowing it sounded like the pathetic begging it was, I finished, and protected young poets from abuse. Now, the poem that she has just made up is in the form of a limerick. Limerick is a five-lined poem where the first, second, and fifth line rhyme, and the third and fourth lines rhyme with each other rather than with the others, and they're much shorter. The next time that she meets St. Bruce, the warrior poet, she tries another limerick. St. Bruce was a warrior poet. He lived in a cave, don't you know it? He wrote sonnets and verses, but never said curses. He'll give you one chance, please don't blow it. The last time that she meets him, she decides to go with a haiku poem. And she's made this up in her mind beforehand. A poem in a cave, offering up all my hopes on butterfly wings. Fiordina, the knitter, is the guardian of the statue. And she smiles and says, haiku. Yes, I said. St. Bruce likes haiku. Well, good. Except, how had I known there'd be an except? Except haiku's so very short. Succinct, I corrected. Good word, she told me. Haiku's so very short that if a poet offers up haiku poetry, Bruce does like to. She smiled, her brown tooth smile at me. A second poem. Did I mention the time limit? So, on the spot, I made up another haiku. The statue of Bruce, silent but waiting to strike. Poem, do not fail me. Haiku poems do not rhyme, but they are told in 3 lines of 5 syllables, then 7 syllables, then 5 syllables. Luckily, um, we don't have to rely just on my poetry. There is much better poetry written by some of my friends, including Dreaming of You by Amy Ludwig Vanderwater. Amy writes a lot of poems that are set in nature, um, including this one. Um, let's go this way. Fireflies are dreaming of dark summer meadows. Fireflies are dreaming of cold golden light. Fireflies are dreaming of flitting and flickering, lighting your path in a forest at night. So those are 4 lines. A lot of 4-line poetry comes in different rhyme schemes where maybe the first and the third, or the second and the fourth rhyme, or maybe all 4 rhyme, or the first 2 and the second 2. The wonderful thing about 4-line poetry is you can choose your own rhyming scheme. This is Beach Play by my friend Marcia Hales. Marcia writes, I want to say, playful poetry, where she has words that she links together more than lines. Beach day plain, sunning, shading, playground romping, ocean waiting. Smacking, packing, sandy, smacking. I'm sorry, sandy stacking. Um, so that's another way that you can write poems, is by playing with the language. And the last book that I wanted to talk about is Predator and Prey by yet another friend, Susanna Berman Deaver. Susanna is another person who writes about nature. In her book, she has a little bit about pairs of animals, one of which is the predator that preys on the other. So it's kind of a conversation, 2 poems looking at the same thing. My absolute favorite poem in this book is told by a predator and prey, where the predator uses deception. It uses mimicry to fool the prey. And so she tells the same poem. I'm not going to read it to you, but she tells the same poem from the predator and the prey's point of view, except she reverses the order of the lines. What's the first line in the first poem is the last line in the second poem. Again, because it's a case of mimicry to fool. And I think that is incredibly clever of her to not only have the words, but the form of the poem reflecting what she's saying. So what I'm suggesting is that you might try writing a poem that you would write if you were Janine, who is faced with the statue of St. Bruce the warrior poet. It could be a limerick or haiku. It can be a 4-line poem. It can be using playful words. I would recommend maybe a combination of 10 of those, or it can be a conversation kind of poem where it is 2 poems looking at the same thing in 2 different ways. And I want to tell you that I hope you have fun with that. And I also want to tell you, please stay safe and be kind.